When I say that I think Donald Trump has actually lost his mind amid a massively successful Democratic National Convention, I am not at all exaggerating. The guy posted dozens, literally dozens, of stream of consciousness screeds onto Truth Social, offering some insight into the dark state of mind that he's in right now as Kamala Harris continues to ascend in the polls. I'm not going to cover all of them so as to save us all some time and save some semblance of our mental health, but there are certainly a few that are worth discussing, especially considering these are the usual tenuous talking points being parroted on the right, so the rebuttals will certainly come into handy. Like, for example, this one. Walz was an assistant coach, not a coach. If you needed an indication of just how petty, salty, and bitter Donald Trump is right now, this one's a pretty good example. I know that Donald Trump must have extensive experience in team sports and working hard for his spot on the field, and definitely hasn't relied on his money or his father for his station in life, but athletes call assistant coaches coach too. Or this one, where's Hunter? The extent to which Donald Trump is desperate to run against Joe Biden still and not Kamala Harris cannot be overstated. This guy is trying his level best to manifest into reality that Joe Biden will jump back into this race because he quite literally does not know how to run against Kamala. Although, in fairness, it's possible that he doesn't remember that Joe Biden dropped out, which is not a stretch for a guy who also believes that Hannibal Lecter was real and has made mentioning of him a permanent part of his stump speech. He then went on to write, "A lot of talk about childhood, we've got to get to the border, inflation, and crime." Funny he should say that, because on the border, Donald Trump was unilaterally responsible for sinking the border bill that was negotiated by conservative Republican James Lankford that would have solved the issues at the border, but it was more important for Trump to preserve the issue to campaign on than to actually fix anything. And even still, border crossings are at an all-time low during the presidency of Joe Biden, including being lower this month than Donald Trump's last month in office himself. On inflation, which has been a global phenomenon in the aftermath of COVID, the US now has the lowest inflation rate since 2021 and is in the target 2% range. And finally, on crime, it is currently down about 20 to 25% from its spike during the Trump era. So on literally all of these issues that Trump thinks benefits him, he is responsible for exacerbating the severity of them. In fact, Donald Trump quadrupled down on the crime narrative with posts like this, and this, and this. I spoke with former Obama Communications Director Dan Pfeiffer about why Donald Trump was so intent on leaning into crime, even notwithstanding the fact that his notion of a crime surge is untrue, and you'll be shocked to learn that it has a lot to do with race.
I think this is a poor execution of a tried and true Republican strategy, right, that dates back to the Dukakis campaign and the infamous Willie Horton ad. There were similar ads that were run against Biden after the death of George Floyd. The issue here that is the challenge is that in American politics, crime is a proxy for race. This is true in all Republican ads, particularly true in Trump ads. And what they're trying to make it seem is that this is the inverse of the who you're going to fight for question, right? Is that she is going to side with someone other than you. And that other person is a black person, an immigrant, someone other than you, MAGA voter, right? Or white American. Like that is the subtext there. Those attacks have historically worked better against candidates of color. You're going to see a lot of position she had or rhetoric she used in 2019 and 2020 taken dramatically out of context, but to try to portray her as someone who is too liberal or too radical to protect your family or too in league with these other people who are not you to protect this country. They tried this with Obama in lots of ways. They failed, and I think they will probably fail here too, but we're going to see a ton of this. And the fact that she is from California and was a district attorney of San Francisco in particular, which has been demonized in the press, particularly over the last 4 years, pushed by Fox News, but this vision of San Francisco as this lawless place filled with homeless people, this is something Democrats have to watch. This is why Kamala Harris starts her stump speech with that prosecutor versus felon. It's not just that Trump's a criminal, it's that I am tough on crime, that I am strong enough to do this. I have a record of doing this, is to preemptively push back against that caricature.
Yeah, suddenly not so surprising that Donald Trump is so focused on this perpetual bogus crime wave narrative, huh? He continued on with this, lying again about Project 2025, which she knows, and so do all Democrats, that I have absolutely nothing to do with. You've heard the expression, a hit dog will holler. The very simple truth is that Donald Trump and the Heritage Foundation got cocky and made a huge miscalculation by writing down their own plans, a point which Kamala has made numerous times.
Project 2025. Randy, can you believe they put that thing in writing? 900 pages in writing!
And now that the American people know what Project 2025 is and how overtly dangerous and extreme it is, it's become an albatross around Trump's neck, which means he's on a tear trying to distance himself from it, claiming that he's got no idea who's behind it, which is probably news to the more than 200 former Trump administration officials who are behind it. Trump's efforts to reject Project 2025 are nothing more than the desperate maneuvering of a politician who knows that he's gone too far by being uncharacteristically honest about what he would do in office. Trump continued on with this. She has led us to failing nation status. No one is more desperate to manifest into reality this baseless idea that the US is doing poorly than Donald Trump. He quite literally broadcast his desire for the stock market to crash, regardless of how it would actually impact Americans, because he wanted to be able to wield it as a cudgel against Democrats to help himself politically. In reality, the US has the strongest economy in the entire world, a stark contrast to the 3.4% contraction in economic output when Trump was president. The US has added the most jobs in US history at 16 million, in stark contrast to the 3 million net job loss when Trump was president. The US has the lowest unemployment rate in half a century, a stark contrast to the 6.3% unemployment rate when Trump was in office. On metric after metric, the US is doing better now than it did under Donald Trump. I get that he wants to play make-believe and pretend that he presided over some period of great prosperity, but no one mismanaged the economy, the pandemic, and our alliances worse than Donald Trump himself. So while he might lie, the numbers don't. And finally, let's end with this. My administration will be great for women and their reproductive rights. At this point, the guy is just trolling Americans. Let's be clear, Donald Trump unilaterally is responsible for Roe being overturned. He not only vowed to appoint justices who would gut it, which he did, but he's since bragged about it over and over and over again, including literally this week.
On abortion, I will bring it up. We did a great thing. We did something that for 52 years people have wanted to do. They wanted to get rid of Roe v. Wade. They wanted to bring that subject back to the states. Every Democrat wanted that, every Republican, every liberal, every conservative, and every legal scholar. And I did it.
Not only is he proud of overturning Roe, but he will 100% sign a nationwide abortion ban if he's in office. Remember, his running mate, J.D. Vance, had a segment on his website calling for an outright end to abortion in America. So my message to everyone, even those in liberal bastions like California and New York, remember these words from Kamala Harris herself.
When he was presented with the notion of a national ban, said that he would support it and sign it if it came to his desk when he was president. He hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade.
And bragged about that.
And they did as he intended, and he has since bragged about how proud he is of what he did. I also would point to the decision that court rendered undoing the protections of Roe, taking basic freedoms from the American people. Clarence Thomas, a member of the United States Supreme Court, said the quiet part out loud in that decision, which is that contraception was very much on the table, not to mention Obergefell. So regardless of one's gender, this issue of the taking of a fundamental freedom, the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, impacts everyone. And just sit back and think about it again. The notion that in our lifetime, just in the last 2 years, a basic freedom, literally about house and home, about the freedom to make decisions about your own body has been taken. If that's taken, I would suggest everything is on the table. And for that reason, everyone should be concerned and vigilant about fighting to protect freedoms. See the stakes at hand and at play in this election in 2024. Because believe you me, if Donald Trump is president again and a national abortion ban hits his desk, odds-on favorite, he signs it. And for all of our friends in California and New York and all these other states that have protected this freedom, don't get too comfortable.
Right. A nationwide ban on abortion is a nationwide ban.
A nationwide ban on abortion is a nationwide ban on abortion.
The fact is that Donald Trump needs to lie because his positions aren't popular enough to tell the truth about. And that's because he is running not to help the country, not to benefit Americans, not to fix some problems, but rather to consolidate power for himself. This is about imposing control and edicts onto a country that doesn't want it. So he'll lie to help himself, but the fact that he has to sink to those lengths tells you everything you need to know.